Well, let's turn our attention back to what is happening inside Mozambique, especially the northern province of Cabo Delgado. It's inhumane. That's according to Doctors Without Borders, or MSF. Over the past year, terrorist attacks in the region have grown in strength and also, sadly, brutality. The relief agency saying nearly 700,000 people are displaced. They're living with fear, insecurity and a lack of access to basic needs and even food. Well, let's get more from MSF Southern Africa Spokesperson Tadeu Andre. Mr. Andre, good morning to you. We're reaching that moment where almost 1 million people are being displaced. It won't take long to get there. The world seems to be ignoring what is happening in Mozambique. Please tell me the latest of what's happening there.
Morning, Gareth, and morning to all your viewers. Yes, what's happening in Cabo Delgado is it's a humanitarian crisis, massive crisis. What we're seeing is, as you mentioned, people have a lack of access to healthcare, basic services, medication. And, we've seen that there's been conflict in the area since 2017. And since that time, the number of internally displaced people has been steadily growing. And as you mentioned, we're now close to 1 million people displaced in the area. Families are being forced to flee from their homes. They're separated from one another, living in crowded conditions. And when I was there in April, what we saw was it's one of the poorest provinces in one of the poorest countries, or the poorest province in one of the poorest countries on the continent. And people have been living in difficult situations before this conflict, and what this has done is it's driven people to the edge. There's difficulties in accessing food, with basic services such as sanitation, water, which drives outbreaks of issues like cholera, malaria we see, and COVID-19 as well.
Yeah, now we bring COVID-19 into the situation as well. I can't imagine how much worse that's making everything for those residents of Cabo Delgado. Let's talk about support. Obviously, MSF, you are all there. So what MSF can only do so much. Government intervention, regional intervention, South African intervention is maybe where we should go today. What does that look like? Is it just too slow or not enough being done, or a combination of both?
I can't say what can be done by other organizations, but what we've been doing, we've been working there since 2019, and there needs to be a scaling up of the humanitarian response in the area. But as I said, we've been working there since 2019, supporting people living in resettlement sites, in camps for internally displaced persons, and also visiting family homes in areas like Montepuez, where many of those who have been displaced have moved from areas like Palma in northern Cabo Delgado to those homes, and are now living in extremely crowded conditions. Some of the homes we visited, there were in excess of 30 people living in those homes, 2 or 3 bedroom homes. So there's a continuation of the violence, just because we're not seeing it in the news every day, such as the attack, things like the attack on Palma in the news every day, doesn't mean that the violence stops, and it doesn't mean that the situation is getting better for people there.
No, it doesn't sound like it's getting better at all. Tadeu, just talk to me then, before I say goodbye to you in the last minute or so I have, what does MSF need? What's a call that you're putting out this morning, whether it's to government, to the public, to volunteers? How can we help is what I'm trying to find out.
What we're calling for is for scaling up of the humanitarian response in the region, for humanitarian organizations to be able to work freely and easily, and support from governments and from people like your viewers to assist us in scaling up our response in the region.
Well, I appreciate your time in speaking to us, and all the best with the kind of work that you and MSF Southern MSF are doing in the northern parts of Mozambique, near Cabo Delgado, and of course all those displaced people. Over 500,000 people, close to 1 million people displaced in Cabo Delgado. MSF spokesperson Tadeu Andre for Southern Africa.